Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another It Came From the Workbench installment. We like to come hot and heavy with the It Came From the Workbench installments because there's a surplus building up under the bench. I think we've got all the materials for like 4 series. And we've got to finish the bug. The Flanco is, I think, ready to leave. We've got to paint that Bronco and get the rest of that body assembled so we can do the rest of the suspension tweaks with the added weight. But we can do some stuff with some immediacy. This is Volume 31, Episode 2. This is the Ballad of CJ Joe, our CJ7, which we are moving in somewhat smaller steps in an attempt to get this thing to something, generally drivable before we go all in. So the box of bits for him has hollowed out a little. There's like 5 things left in there. Not too much to go on that. But I think we've made some important quality of life changes because he is fresh off the scale pads. He just came off the scales. I weighed him up after I finished doing the adding of the parts. Very simple stuff here. Up in the front, in the back, Mia sells their diff covers by the pair. So he's got the pair of diff covers, and he's got the Mias knuckles for AR-45. Right? So we've added 150 grams or so to the front axle. And then every picture I see of one of these online in any place, whether it's Instagram, what have you, everybody's running like Injora Deeps. I don't have any Injora Deeps on hand that aren't already installed on vehicles. So we put some 18 millimeter offset hubs on this, pushing the wheel track out to 260 millimeters, just under 10 and a quarter. Am I right? Right about 10 and a quarter inches. So it pushed out wide. And because it's a Jeep and because it's a CJ7, I think it looks fine. And I love that wheel track right about 10 inches. So I think we're in the right place. We have discarded the oily beasts. The 100s are off blissfully and thankfully, replaced by Traxxas 2660s, which went together. 3 of them went together fantastically, perhaps even marvelously. And shock number 4, the bladder kept popping out from under the cap, and I would set the 4 of them down. This is a test I do for building 2660s because everything can feel like it's going swimmingly. And then I put all 4 of them next to each other, not touching, like shock, 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 shock. Or I can illustrate it this way. I kind of set them like this. And then I go about the rest of my business. And then I'll come back and I'll pick it up. And if there's any oil on there at all, I got to pull the cap off and check it again. And then I do the next one, the next one, the next one. 3 of them, boom, bam, bish, bosh, done. The 4th one, the bladder kept slipping in. A little bit of oil would fill the cap. It would poop the oil out. Once they were settled and filled, we went through the process of selecting spring rates that we were guesstimating to be okay. And we've done, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family of Breakthrough, we have got a little bin over here of shock springs, the little bitty shock springs. And as I had mentioned, up to about 1.4 pounds per inch, that's about where we stop. Like, I don't know anybody that's running skinnies, little baby springs, DriveTech SE, Losi Mini T, what have you. I don't know of anybody running above 1.8. I don't even know if I have anybody running a 2 pound. I know a guy now. Element, the stiffest of the Element soft pack, the blue band, 3.4 pound in the front, because the front shocks are basically just stood up, and then the motor and everything is right over top of it. In the rear, DriveTech Hards, 2.4 pounds, and I know that is counter to how we ordinarily set these things up, but something about the relationship of the 3-link in the front and the 4-link in the back, it doesn't work with the 3.4s in the back. It sits like that, and it won't compress. This feels unbelievable. I mean, this is some 2660 stuff. And the width of I was worried initially the increased width would hit the bumper. No, actually the tire is farther away from the bumper. So we should have far fewer issues with that. Before I take the body off, which means I'll have to put it on again, and still. Someone had mentioned in a comment that what they did is on the inner fender, you'll see it when I take it off. They trimmed the edges of it because there are the screws, the screw ports that hold the outer fenders on have little tabs, and they go through notches in the inner fenders, and that's why it's so infuriating to get this body on and off. Why I don't want to trim those fenders, the inner fenders, is because I think it kind of locks the body in place. So I'm worried about taking some of that locking capacity away. Before I took the body off, I wanted to point out, am I the only one that didn't notice that the side view mirrors are asymmetrical? That this one is lower and sticks out farther, and this one is taller and sits up higher? Is that how they are on the real thing? Like, that's obviously intentional. They are clearly different molds. I didn't bend them. I didn't know. I noticed it about 10 minutes ago as I was installing parts. I was like, wait, what? Wait. It lower, longer, skinnier, taller. So we did an important thing. Everybody said you can fit a battery over there, and you can. And they are absolutely correct. It's that when the buckle is out here, it hits. So I sanded the inside of this down. I drilled 2 additional holes and used flanged lock nuts. Clamped it down, got it as low as possible. I did successfully measure the distance from the fender to the inside of the flat on the body under the seats right here. It is 30 millimeters. And this, when installed, is like 28 millimeters. So any additional space above that, it's not going to fit. So luckily these 2200s are pretty much my go-to. And they've, like, some of the 1500s are taller. Through age and whatnot, they've gotten fatter. Those 1500s for me wouldn't fit. I got this close to being like, just cut a notch in the slider and just put the Velcro strap over the slider. I definitely and truly prefer this. Everything bolted on as well as one could expect. This is indeed, we're going to go over the weights in a second. This is indeed the final installment of the here's some little stuff you can do. If you're ordering from Mias, there's $40 worth of parts got installed, and you're looking at about $55. Let's call it $100 for what went on today. So we've added another 100 to it, and I think before we added about 100 to it. So yeah, it's a $700 RTR at this point. we don't talk about that. So the going wider and the partially random selection of shock springs seems to have aided in the scaling. I don't know what it scaled before. I know it was just heavy. It is still heavy. 8.57 pounds. Canyon had some visitors very recently, and they had not seen one of these in person and saw it up close and were like, oh, that's not 10th scale. There's no way on planet Earth that's 10th scale. And I was like, yeah, I know. If you haven't seen them side by side, or one atop the other, from the same manufacturer, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Axial Jeep Wrangler JLU, and this is the CJ7. It's the same length. You ever seen one of these in person? It's an SUV. This is 8th scale. Maybe 7th scale. It's enormous. And how you can tell it's enormous is if you try to set a... It's enormous. It's an inch wider. It is significantly longer. This thing usually has bumpers on it, and this is a 10.3, and this is a 10.3. But these beefy things that I still want to cut off, it's a big boy. Much like the VRD with the bug body on it, definitely looks like an 8th scale. This thing looks like at least an 8th scale. That body is still woefully heavy, and there's there's not a lot we can do about it, except put some firm springs on it. It has the traditional Canyon settle. The rear feels, if you just do this, you go, oh, the springs are too stiff. And then you put this tank on top of it, and you go, you know what? The rear springs are not too stiff, and that was my problem. I was setting this thing up, preparing for the scaling with the body off. You have to work on this thing with the body on, because I go like this, and I go, too stiff. Slap that on there and give it the motion and go, oh, pretty good. So, before I go through the arduous process of getting, see, these boys, there and there, and primarily these boys, they hang up on these boys. So if you were to just trim those tabs all the way back to where there's no tabs, it's just even, the body would go, cloop. But then the only thing holding it on would be, which is, I mean, I guess that's how bodies are usually held on, just by 4 pins. I kind of like the security of it, so I'm not, I'll just deal, you know what? I'll just deal with it. Did anyone else see the thing that the Axial guy posted where they turn this slider into a door that just swings down so you could just stick the battery in and never have to take your body off? Grrr! Why didn't it come like that? You should have given us that. 8.57 pounds. Important numbers out of the way first. 56% of the weight on the front axle, 44% of the weight on the rear axle. The cross weights are a little bit all over the place. It is just a barely 50.17% while sitting level in an RTR configuration. Front end up, it goes a little wild, 52%. So it's throwing, which is not ordinarily what we see, it's throwing 2% of the vehicle weight onto this tire. And usually this is a lifty tire, so that 2% might indeed help us in an on-the-rocks situation. Descending, it throws all that weight over here. I don't understand. Actually, no, it crosses opposite. So this is the weight transfer. It transfers from here to here when climbing, and it transfers from here to here when descending. I don't know if that's the asymmetricality of the box. I don't know if it's that there's just because the motor is just right of center line. This stuff I wouldn't think would weigh as much as the battery, but it is also right of center line. I don't know what it is. There's nothing binding. There's nothing explicitly there that should make the weight shift that crossway when descending, and unless it's this, like the weight of this is asymmetrical. I don't see why it would be. But when we're talking about a 3% differential, that is in whole numbers, 3%. Okay, this is what I didn't do. We're gonna do some very rough math here. 8.57 pounds times 16 is about 137 ounces. Times, yeah, this thing is knocking on the door of 4 kilos, 3,900 ounces. So it's shifting over 100 ounces to this wheel when descending. Now we're gonna see if that prompts the woo cartwheel times. I don't know. The CGH came out much lower than I would have anticipated. Picture this is, imagine that this is fully complete and it's sitting on flat ground, and the suspension is its normal resting position. The CG is at 3.53 inches above the ground, which is right about below these little tread blocks. So when it's on flat ground, it's basically, there's a top shaft in the gearbox, and then there's the bottom shafts that go through here. Draw an imaginary line between the top shaft and the middle shaft, and it's like right through the center of the gearbox. That is surprisingly low for something that has 1.36 pounds up, pretty much as high as you can put it. This body, this vehicle, is a litany, a symphony of sacrifices for Vanity, for the beautiful body, for the wonderful fenders, for the look that you get from it. And we're gonna in upcoming installments, we are going to add weight and we are going to take weight away. I know, no spoilers, but there will be one modification that we make to this that in one fell swoop will reduce the weight of this vehicle by 500 grams in one shot. This thing weighs 4,000. So we're going to take 12.5% of the weight off in one motion. And that is an all sprung. So that's pretty good. I'm hoping that this track width and this setup looks nice. If so, we will just get identical 105 deeps. That way we don't have to use offset adapters. I prefer the deeps. We'll throw some deeps on there. And I'm looking forward to the next installment, perhaps more than anything, because we won't have to use this anymore. Oh, or this. That's definitely in the box. The servo. The servo, and because, well, we'll be replacing the ESC in installment 3. Installment 3. We'll be replacing the ESC, and if we do that, it's a combo. So we have to, we'll have to get rid of this. I'm not upset about that at all. So all the spectrum will go away all at once because it has to, because it's a TV VCR, and we're replacing both the TV and the VCR. So it will be nice to rid myself of a little bit more spectrum. I am not a fan, and I am vocal about it, because as far as RTR gear goes, you've got the VT1 from Vanquish, and then right below that you got the TQI, and then right below that you got everything else, because Associated/Elements stopped giving us the XP120, XP130, which was a perfectly competent radio, and replaced it with the G4P, an outsourced in-source from FlySky, and that is an objectively horrific radio. The trigger feels terrible, the wheel feels awful, the ergonomics are not good, it doesn't have any adjustments, endpoints, nothing. We got shrinkflated on that one. And they had to have had warehouses full of those XP130s, so I don't see why they got discontinued. The DX3 and the SLT3, SL3, whatever, these are awful. Like, the ergonomics of it are bad. There's nothing about it that I like, except maybe that, but my thumb doesn't like its position. So when I try to use the regular wheel, I hit this all the time. The position of the AB switch for dig is not in a good position for my hand. I'm sure some people wouldn't have problems with it. You have no options in changing the battery source. It screams OE radio, and I just don't like it, and I don't have to live with it. Other people might not have a problem, but different strokes for different folks. I have misplaced all of the... I am too lazy to go through the process of plugging in the lights. I have lost / misplaced / don't know where they are right now. All of the... Whoa, did that go on all the way? No. There we are. Now we are on all the way. I have misplaced... Yeah, the body definitely wants to lean that way. Not a lot, but a little. Like it's torque twisting for no reason. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what's going on. I got a digger. Oh, gotta cleave our thing close. I gotta source body clips, and I will meet you outside. We begin with a couple of closely intertwined notes. I think it needs the width. Like it looks better at its monster scale with the tires out a bit wider. I also noted, intertwined in with that first thought, that the body is of such a size. Those are 475s. They look like class 1s. The width, the track width now, we've definitely arrived into territory where the Spectrum S614 cannot handle it. I push a wheel into some place, and I try to reposition, and I get nothing. I get absolutely nothing. The tire just forces the servo back the other way. It is feeling... Oh, there it is. There it is. Come on. Come on. Yeah, I can't... It doesn't... on the one hand, it doesn't feel like the rear is over collapsing. On the other hand, it feels like I'm just throwing the nose in the air and I cannot bring it back down. We've gone up a hair above stock rate. Okay, right there. Maybe I'm just giving it too much of the pepper. A little too many beans. Yeah. I don't know how much of this is the steering. The steering is all bad. Oh my goodness. It is. Everything is worse. Everything is worse. A result is absolutely a result. And they can't all be. Oh, now you're going to do this. Yeah, okay. Okay, everything is not worse. That was significantly better than it was before. Every approach I try on Daphne's, though, is bad. And how quick it is to snap out, I feel like it's snapping out quicker than it did before. The suspension action looks great. I cannot breach that without speed. And then when I get up here, it is full doodlebug. Something is not working with something else. And it has to be springing. It has to be springing. But its drivability has improved dramatically. But when that rear overloads, the weight transfer is huge and immediate. And I get no bite. It is we shortened the shocks by 15 millimeters, and it is tippier than it has ever been. It feels, and I mean driving on flat ground, making this entry right here, doing any of the normal function, it feels neither oversprung nor underdamped, but the suspension giveaway point where you've just lost it all comes on instantly. So the added width and the added unsprung weight should translate to greater stability. And sometimes it feels like it is. Buried it. Oh. Right there. Whoa. Whoa. It is no. Like that's all new right there. This. Yeah, yeah. It is. This is the worst case scenario, because it is really good. Like, you want it to be impossibly bad, like unquantifiably bad. You just go to drive it and you just roll. No, this is good, and then instantly it is not good, and you have no opportunity to catch it at all. This fills me with trepidations about going into the next phase. Like right here, that's the forward drive outstanding. And then we lift that leg, and that would lead you to say, oh, we're over collapsing in the rear. But I don't think we are. Maybe I'm not seeing it. The maneuverability, there was nothing I could do. I was already off the throttle, and it was like, no. This roll has already been initiated. We are going to finish it. I do have this, if this is a positive. At this track width and this servo, the turning circle is a mile. But, oh my goodness. But, it doesn't drive like it's 8.5 pounds. It drives much lighter, but the snap outs, I can't even get into the position that I want to. And the speed control receiver combo, we did not add that much weight. The speed control receiver combo are barely, the speed control can barely muster enough oomph to get this thing moving. With each passing minute, as it rolls over more and more and more, oh, it's so bad. It's so bad at everything. Not everything, but it's bad at everything. Do you know what I mean? Well, in the next phase, this thing is going to have underdrive. And I genuinely believe it desperately needs it, because I think the lack of this is impassable in this configuration. It's, you know, what's the old adage? That's why they call it fishing and not catching. I don't even know if we're going to get to the point where we can test this thing's just, oh my God. And then, are you going to, no, it's going to shuttle. It is driving really light at both ends. Like that clear of that right there was 100% tire. The rig was not helping at all. Yeah, it feels to a degree like it's over transferring. The only thing I can think is that the front is overly firm. It's not compressing enough, so it's making the front end act light. And I think that's most likely what we're looking at, as on level ground, the front suspension is just about perfect. And then as soon as we start climbing, the front stretches out and we don't have the ability to set it back down. And then it does that. It looks good. And like, look at this. Look at the action. As we run back, drop. It's excellent right there. As soon as we get when the rear end gets any load in it, it goes away. And the turning circle, sponsored by the Spectrum S614, is horrific. That addition of track width, it cannot, like, that's halfway to lock. That's as far as it will turn while loaded, and we can, it'll kind of poke out the rest of the way. Okay, it descends better than it does anything else. So that bit of weight cross transfer apparently doesn't matter. And right through there, the suspension looks great. Aside from a near total lack of steering right there, that looks great. I think that has to be given props to the Tekin HD35, because other folks have said they've hooked up their program cards and dialed up on the Firma and still had no drag brake. This is drag brake. Yeah, that's holding great. I think you can get away with a 3-pole in this. A 35-turn 3-pole. You just need to put in a decent one. If you're okay with the TV VCR combo, I think it can work, which means you got to be okay with the radio. This is there's a lot of things you have to accept in sequence in order to stick with it. I would still say just change the radio, put a fusion in it. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. That little circuit right there felt perfect. All the way around the loop. I never found anywhere where it was getting weird on me. But when this thing gets weird, it gets properly weird. I feel an obligation to myself and others to at least put it on the side hill. 3.53 inches is low for a CG, particularly for what we're working with. That didn't get nearly as light. I can feel a lightness in the front end, but nothing remotely close to what I was anticipating before I drove onto the obstacle. Now this should just transfer. That's super light. And it's definitely got a mind of its own. When it decides, we're going. To continue the fishing analogy, there will be no catch of the day with CJ Joe. When he decides he's gone. When he going, he gone. There is no catching it. At 8.57 pounds, so these inserts, they say in silicone blues, vehicles up to 4 kilograms. That's 8.8. So we're at the top end of that. I'm watching that rear smear, and I've not seen an uncut blue smear like that yet. I was also there watching a little bit of slot. Oh yeah, boom, insta-light. Don't you dare. Just roll out. Don't you dare make this. Did you see that? It shrugged. It hunched that front corner down. Out of nowhere. I'm at a loss at this point. It should not have set, based on what I have witnessed up until now. Look at that terrible turn. Based on what I've witnessed until now, it should not have set that front end down. That was like, what? The more I have to drive this, the more I wheel it, the more I roll it, and the more my hate for the body mount system grows. You learn quickly that to pick this thing up, you can't pick it up by the cage because the body will pull off of the internal fenders and then the body will sit all wonky. So you say, okay, I'll pick it up by the stinger. The stinger is nylon and you feel it bending tremendously when you try to support 8.5 pounds, almost 4 kilos off of that little plastic hoop. So you think, okay, I'll just stick my hand, I'll scoop my hand under the front bumper and I'll pick it up like I pick up every other rig that lives here. And when you do that, you forget that there are 2 body clips right up under the inside of that bumper and they will stab you. And if you insert your fingers far enough before you lift the vehicle, they will not only stab you, but they will fish hook you and hook you between the body clip and the servo horn. And then you have to use your other hand to take the weight of the vehicle off of your fingers and extract your fingers, which now potentially have a couple little puncture holes in them by taking a body clip and putting 8.5 pounds of force on it against your fingertips. Yes, there is a cosmetic factor there, but at what cost? I am going to do what I do. I am going to ignore the fact that this vehicle can no longer perform some simple functions, and yet will do things on the side hill that other vehicles find themselves incapable of doing, And I'm going to go into the very next, I'm going to immediately go into the next process with making no adjustments from where it is right now. I know it will be oversprung for the next phase. I don't, and I state that with an overflowing of hubris, as I don't know at all. These springs felt amazing on the bench. The thing drives on flat ground fantastically. Even uneven terrain, the suspension looks so supple. But when you go to climb, when you go to get to any significant degree of climb, in my head right now, I picture there's a little outcrop right here. I picture hitting this and just flopping it backwards. So of course it's going to stay down. It got light in the front, but not very light. How does one deal with a suspension that works perfectly in about 30% of situations and is absolutely hopeless in the other 70%? I guess we'll find that out together. We're going to pull 500 grams out of that rig, give or take. And I guess we'll go from there. So in between now and when we go from there, I invite you one and all to have a good one, everybody. Do your very best to have a good one, everybody. We'll catch you in the next one here from the canyon. Hopefully things will, we'll get a little better of alignment of the stars. We can't knock it out of the park every time. Sometimes it's a soft pop up to the shortstop, and that's where we are today. Baseball analogies, fishing analogies. I mean, it's gonna be worse.